Hey everyone, welcome back to Reissued. If you're new here, my name is Andrew. Today we are back to the bathroom renovation. It's been a couple of weeks since we've had any bathroom related videos. There's been so much happening in that space. I'm going to be catching you up on a lot of construction things, tile, grout, installing moldings, adding new lighting, and a very fancy toilet from Horow. And then we are going to be transforming a very average bathroom vanity that I got at the REISSUED. This transformation is absolutely insane and I cannot wait to show you the finished product. Along the way, I do have some places where I need your expertise and your opinions and your feedback, so be sure to leave those down in the comments. And also be sure that you're subscribed so that you don't miss the next video in the bathroom series, which is going to be the final reveal. Can't believe it's upon us already. But first, DIY mid-century inspired bathroom vanity thrift flip. Let's go. Before we get started today, just a reminder that this is part 4 in the bathroom makeover series. So if you're not up to speed where we are in the bathroom makeover, be sure that you check out the bathroom makeover playlist. I'll link that in the description box down below. There have already been some really cool projects and massive transformations in this space, so I don't want you to miss out. If you're already up to speed on the bathroom makeover so far, let's pick up right where we left off last time with a couple of unfinished projects. We started by finishing the beadboard over on the open shelving beside where the tub will go. Remember that this was a thrifted kitchen cabinet that we modified to fit the space and to work with these thrifted slatted shelves. Wrapping this in beadboard and running the chair rail molding around the top is going to help this blend seamlessly into the rest of the space and give that consistent horizon line around the room. Next, we can finish off the tile on the walls. This time we experimented with buttering the wall instead of each individual tile, since we don't have to navigate around any tricky obstacles like doors or windows on this wall. My parents and I were able to move a bit more quickly this way, working as a team, but I think I would have felt overwhelmed to use this method by myself, since you have to move really quickly before the mortar dries. Buttering each tile just seems more manageable for one person if you're tiling alone. Final tiles just went up on the wall, which is super exciting. Now we're gonna start untiling the floor. I always feel like flooring is the part where the room starts to come together. Up until now, it still feels like kind of a construction zone with the bare cement board, but putting in the floor tile is just gonna start to bring the whole room together and really help us visualize this. I chose this floor tile over 3 years ago, right after I bought my house. I saw all 3 vintage-inspired tile patterns at a liquidation center, and so I picked one up for each bathroom. While the other 2 bathrooms have a more dramatic feel that warrants the black and white print, I always knew that I wanted the space to be a little more calm and spa-like. So even though the geometric mosaic gives that vintage feel, the solid white is going to feel more streamlined and calm. The tiles on each sheet are not all spaced out perfectly, so unless you're willing to cut the sheets apart and move each tile, it would be really hard to get a perfectly spaced pattern on the floor. This was less noticeable with the black tiles in the other rooms. The white on white was pretty unforgiving, so I made peace with a bit of imperfection and moved on. After installing some new 1x6s to trim out our new pocket door, we can get to grouting. I'm going with white unsanded grout on the walls to keep them looking fresh and clean and match the kitchen and guest bath. And the floor is getting sanded charcoal grout to showcase the pattern of the geometric tiles. This is the same grout that I've used on all of the tile floors in my house, and of course we ran out right before finishing the floor, and of course it wasn't in stock in my local store, so we had to order this online. So much drama. Install more 1x6 boards to trim out the bottom. My mom painted these off camera to match the walls. All of the original rooms in my house have thick original molding, and the rooms in the porch edition have 1x6 boards. So since we don't have original moldings for the baseboards and door trim, I went with the 1x6s for consistency. For the pull-out cabinet, we installed the baseboard and then used a vibrating saw to cut the beadboard door just above the baseboard so that it can still slide freely and remain invisible. So much caulking and little touch-ups. To bridge the gap from the tile to the ceiling, we install crown molding. Most of these pieces are the same ones that were in this space originally. However, since there were so many crappy seams in the original crown, we got one new piece to supplement what we had on hand and to give us fewer seams. Once everything is in place and caulked, we can touch up the trim and give the walls another coat of paint. We had planned to use a roller for the second coat, but the paint wanted to pool in the grooves, and there wasn't much open wall space anyway, so brush it is. Let's wrap up the open shelf area by installing the shelf that we cut from the leftover solid surface counter that I got at the REISSUED. This gives a nice waterproof countertop surface for shower products. And on that note, I'm going to caulk the cracks to prevent any water from sneaking through. I'll touch this up with brown paint later. More touch-ups. Now, let's light up this room. I picked up this fixture on Facebook Marketplace for $40 and had it shipped to me from Tennessee. Kind of a risky move, but I think it paid off. I love the modern gold base and the ribbed glass globes, such a great mix of contemporary and traditional elements. It was missing one of the little round decorative attachment nuts, but I couldn't find anything else like this, and so I opted to purchase it and then spray paint some different nuts to match the gold finish. Looks pretty good. Before hanging the sconces, we put a lot of the vanity elements into the space to get a visual for the placement. That included hanging this gorgeous vintage mirror that I got a while back at the REISSUED for $25. This has been hanging in the atrium and looked great there too, but the scale, wood tone, modern lines, and vintage quality were exactly what this space needed. There are a lot of classic elements in this space so far with the beadboard and tile, so I think that the punch of gold and clean geometric lines of these Mitzi sconces will warm up the space and offer some modernity. Plus, they tie in nicely with the other globe fixtures that I have around my house. Now, let's install the new smart toilet. First, we need to install an outlet right by the toilet since it needs a place to plug in. We already had the wiring in place, but since I'm a detail freak and not loving the white plugs on the dark brownish walls, we ran an experiment on this plug, prepping it with a bonding primer, and then immediately adding a coat of matching brownish spray paint. I had to have this color since the match was pretty spot on, but it didn't have the plastic bonding agent that many spray paints have now, hence the primer. This method worked really well, and we'll definitely be doing this for all the other plugs and switches in the space. Okay, so today we are finally installing the toilet from Horow. We opened this up a while back to take a look and make sure everything was gonna work, and now today we're doing the installation. This collaboration has been a long time coming. Horow reached out to me at the end of last year wanting to send me a toilet, and that's a big part of why we started moving forward on the bathroom renovation, because I thought their products looked super cool, and I definitely wanted to feature one of them in my space. So yeah, this one's been a long time in the making. Can't wait to get this installed and see how it works. I chose the T16A model since it had a lot of the features that I liked, like a built-in bidet and heated seat, but it still had a sleek and simple look that wasn't too modern or futuristic. This model is also at an ADA compliant height, which is standard for most homes in the US. This is also a tankless toilet, so the profile is very sleek. However, that means that it has specific requirements for water flow. So a couple key things to note here. First, the water needs to be run with a 1/2-inch PVC pipe to be wide enough to get the correct water flow. And second, the toilet comes with a hookup valve, flange, and wax ring, so no need to buy those things separately. With the plug and 1/2-inch PVC in place, this is a one-stop shop product. Installation was fairly straightforward as far as toilets go. The back of the toilet lifts off to allow you to access the mounting bolts from the inside. I love that these are hidden away so we get that minimal look and keep this easy to clean. That didn't make using silicone caulk around the base any more fun. I hate working with silicone caulk. It's sticky and goopy and gross, and it doesn't matter how many times you wash your hands, they're still sticky. Ugh. This is the future. Okay, so I've been using the toilet for about a week now, and it is so cool. Let me show you some of what it can do. Okay, so I have the remote here. I'm gonna turn it on. All right. And then when you sit down, there's a sensor right here that does a pre-flush. That just wets the bowl. Then you can use, I don't know, I've been using the oscillating rear wash, which is lovely. And then when you stand up and you're done, there's a little sensor at the bottom. And it flushes. The combination of the pre-flush and the really powerful flush makes sure that everything stays really clean. I'm loving this so far. I've talked about skimping and splurging on my channel before, and I continue to think that high-end appliances are a great way to elevate a space and get that functionality. So I say get your vanity, sink, light fixtures, and shelving secondhand, and save your money for nice fixtures and hardware and a Horow toilet. So if you're interested in a smart toilet, definitely check them out. I'll link them down in the description box below. And with the toilet installed, we can finally start on the vanity. Way back in the very first bathroom planning video, I found this vanity for $57 and this white quartz counter with built-in undermount sink for $125, both at the REISSUED. This cabinet is pretty unremarkable as far as bathroom vanities go, except that it's plywood rather than particle board, which gives it a bit more of a solid structure and more opportunities for customization, which will be necessary since the cabinet is a couple inches deeper than the countertop. The ultimate plan here is to take off the existing doors and drawer fronts and wrap the whole piece in this walnut plywood that I got for $30 at the REISSUED. The wood grain here is stunning and will offer a warm and modern mid-century inspired look. But first, we need to cut down the cabinet. We're gonna cut the sides down to the correct depth that we need and cut the inside side pieces 3/4 of an inch shorter so that the back can slot inside. Does that make sense? We also need to cut down the pieces that support the drawers. We attach a support piece across the top to keep the spacing of the drawer slides correct, and then start cutting. Everything is complicated. The walls aren't plumb, so we need to measure the angle of the wall and match it so that we can cut enough off the bottom to have it sit back far enough against the wall. Let's go ahead and remove the doors and drawer fronts. Goodbye, average cabinet. Once we get the back off, we remove any excess wood pieces and staples so that it can fit cleanly back in the new slot that we made. And let's cut the base the same way. Once we test it in place, we can reattach the back and the drawer slide pieces with a nail gun. In order for this to be the correct height that I want for this space, we're gonna need to build a 2x4 base to raise this up a little. It's too tall with the 2x4s on end, so let's try them flat instead. Let's build and attach the base. With the base attached, we can place and level the cabinet and screw it into place. We're gonna have to uninstall and reinstall this later, but it's helpful to get a sense of the placement and to get accurate measurements for the walnut wrap. Since the front facing comes out a bit further than the sides, my dad cut and glued some spacer strips in place to make sure that the walnut wrap will have a flat surface to attach to. I went ahead and started filling all the little holes and blemishes on the cabinet facing. In the end, you won't see this at all unless the drawers or front door are open, but best to make it look nice then as well. I opted to paint this with some black paint that I had on hand from the Oops section at Lowe's. The combination of the super watery paint, leftover bit of soap in my foam roller, and unwillingness of my roller to roll made for a disaster paint job. I switched over to a brush to get this job well enough. This is why I always paint with the brush as much as possible and never trust a roller with anything. I have roller trust issues. After 2 coats, it looks okay, but it didn't get much dry time before we started the walnut wrap process, so it's gonna need some serious touch-ups later. Not my shining moment all around. Now let's cut our walnut plywood. Figuring out where to cut was probably the longest part of this process, since there was damage to a couple areas of the wood, and I wanted to get the grain pattern just right. Plus, we want to cut all the pieces on the table saw, and we want an existing straight edge to go along the fence to keep the important cuts straight and square. After a lot of measuring and figuring, we decided to make a rough cut about 36 inches down to make handling the pieces a bit easier, and then started cutting from the end. First, we cut the kick plate piece that will go across the bottom. Then the top strip that will become our 2 drawer fronts and the center panel in between. Then the lower door that will open out as a laundry hamper. I was thinking that I wanted the whole front of this to look like one piece with the grain lining up, but after placing the doors upside down by accident and really liking it, I think we're gonna go with this. I kind of like it with the thing flipped upside down. I think it feels a little bit more custom, right?
I don't know, I kind of thought it was cool when it matched, but it is interesting to me that it's so similar. It does finish it, you're right, it does sort of make it it's very interesting.
It just makes it kind of more complete.
It's just shocking to me that it matches so well being upside down.
Yeah. We're gonna go ahead and flip the top row upside down to create a nice circle in the grain. I think this ended up making the grain pattern feel a little bit more complete, and it also feels like it's referencing some like 1930s armoires, you know, where they do like the book match grains or the like veneer patterns. And so I think it actually takes it away from the mid-century inspiration into something that's a bit more classic. Next, we cut down the sides to the correct height with the circular saw. These panels are going to go all the way from under the counter down to the floor, so no need for perfect table saw cuts here. But we head back to the table saw to cut the width, since we need a clean edge along the front of the cabinet. Note that we're always taping the wood before cutting to prevent the upper layer of the plywood from chipping out. We made one cut without the tape by accident, and it did just fine, but better to be safe. After testing to be sure that the width was correct and that the drawers would have enough room to slide, we made the final cuts on the top row to create our drawer fronts. Time for edge banding. I picked up this walnut banding on Amazon to hopefully match our plywood. I rough cut a piece to length, line up one corner, iron it all the way across, and then use a sharp blade to cut off any excess. My iron is set to the cotton setting, which is the second hottest on my iron. This process felt very similar to the DIY PAX doors that we made. We did a lot of banding on those doors, and so it was nice to revisit a familiar process. Note that for the PAX doors, we applied a wider banding and then cut off the excess with a sharp chisel. This time I bought the correct 3/4 inch size to match our wood, and I think that worked just fine. The glue wanted to ooze out the sides a bit so that it was visible, but I found that going over the edges with some sandpaper knocked out most of the glue. There are a couple areas that I might address again later, but good enough for now. We sanded away any little scuffs with a high grit sandpaper to prep the surface for oil. I wanted to use a clear finish on this rather than a stain because it's walnut and why mess with a good thing, and I wasn't disappointed. I'm using the same butcher block oil / poly combo that I used on my kitchen counters and the little kitchen cart, since I want to condition the wood and offer some waterproofing and protection. This isn't a bathroom after all. After these dried, I think the oil soaked in a bit more, so another coat might be good later on. The banding didn't darken as much as the plywood. I thought about staining it to match, but I kind of think the two-tone look is okay. What do you think? Once these dry, we can attach them to our cabinet. There's very little gapping in between the top 3 pieces, so we clamp everything in place, including the side pieces, to make sure that the drawers can slide freely. Note that this whole time we're using a leftover IKEA handle as a spacer to keep a gap for a different IKEA handle that I was thinking of using, but in the end there was not enough gap between the door and drawer fronts to have any kind of hardware along the edge. I put some little sticky bumpers behind all 3 pieces to space them out evenly from the cabinet facing, and then we screw them in place from the inside of the cabinet. Now we gotta uninstall the cabinet and flip it over to attach the rest. I mentioned that the front door is gonna fold down to be a laundry hamper. I'm planning to make some sort of bag insert that attaches to the door at a later date, but for now we just need a way for this door to fold down and hold in place. Easy enough. First we need to attach a piano hinge at the bottom to support the weight of the door and keep it from twisting. So after reinforcing the front facing with a cut 2x4 behind, we decide on the door placement and attach the hinge. This is tricky since you want to drill the holes right in the center of the hinge holes to keep the placement from shifting once the screws go in.
Ready?
Oh, cool. Hold it right now.
Okay.
Before we flip this right side up, let's screw on the kick plate. And now we can screw the cabinet back into place. My mom did a lot of research and sourced these specialized drop-down hinges on Amazon.
So it's kind of hard to pull, but then it shuts really easily.
Interesting.
They came with no instructions, so we were lucky that my dad figured out how to make them work. The hinges had to fold upward so that the counterweight would balance the door and hold it closed, otherwise it would just fall open. There was so much engineering that went into every step of this stupid thing. Once the door is attached, we can finish the wrapping process by placing the sides and screwing them on from the inside of the cabinet. So I need a solution for some hardware. I actually love how the piece looks with no hardware. It's just very clean and simple, but obviously I can't open any of the drawers or doors this way, so that won't work. I'm thinking maybe some sleek walnut hardware to kind of blend in with the whole look. This is where I need your input. Help me out in the comments down below. We didn't actually install the sink or faucet for this video, but I wanted to get them in place to offer a nice aftershot. The backsplash mounted behind the sink top is unusual, but it was necessary to make the depth of the cabinet work, since we couldn't cut it down anymore without replacing the drawers entirely. But that meant that extra cleanup was required for all the areas that had been previously caulked with silicone. My nemesis! My mom and I found that scraping with the razor blade, cleaning with Goof Off, scrubbing with baking soda, and then wiping one more time with Goof Off seemed to lift the residual goop and give us a clean, shiny finish. The sides of this quartz counter are unpolished, so we'll need to find a solution for that in the final reveal video. If you have any tips on or experience with polishing quartz, be sure to drop that in the comments as well. I need your help. And finally, let's place the faucet to complete the visual. The old faucet wasn't bad, it just wasn't what I was going for. So I got this Delta faucet open box on Amazon for $183. Again, skimping and splurging is a balance, but I just thought that the lines on this faucet had a nice balance of classic and modern that this space really needed. Plus, it came with a drain, so I won't have to source a matching one. And with the sink top and faucet temporarily in place, this project is done. Maybe not totally done because this vanity desperately needs some handles, but done enough for this time. Remember that we have just one part left in this bathroom makeover series. For the final reveal, we have to paint and install the tub and hardware, source or create a piece for the dry bar area, create a hamper insert for the vanity, add some kind of handles, add some plants and accessories, finish all those little touch-ups. There's so much work to be done here, but I think the result is gonna be beautiful and I can't wait to get there with you. If you're with me on this journey and need to see the final reveal, be sure that you're subscribed. And if you enjoyed this video and love the look of the vanity, be sure to hit the like button. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.